Hey, it's Amethyst Virgo. I'm here with another Astrology Explains It All, where I talk about some current events and talk about what astrology has to do with them. So, and I already know that some people that come to my channel come just to learn more about themselves, more about the through the signs, through the houses videos, where they're just trying to understand their own chart. I get that. But I also know that there's some people who genuinely also are interested in understanding the ways in which astrology shows up in our society, in our culture, and in news. So this is for those people who enjoy these types of videos. So with that said, let's start quickly. Then I'm going to move into some things I'm noticing with Saturn Aquarius, especially when it comes to work and labor and strikes and all those different things, especially when it comes to the US. So this transit, I have a whole video about Saturn and Aquarius, Jupiter and Aquarius transit. If you want to check that out, I'll try to link it below. That video talked about it based on your rising sign, right? Or, you know, your transits. This transit, remember, think about this in context of society right now. It is calling on people in some way. People are being bound to certain authority. And authority is, yes, it could be literal, an institution, it could be a system, it could be the law enforcement, it can be the rules, it could be the government, right? Saturn can be all of those things. But Saturn can also represent whoever is leading something as well, just to get that out there. So sometimes it requires to pay our debts to society. You have a lot of people who are even interested now in making sure their influence is spread, especially once we get back into Jupiter and Aquarius in a few days. The pandemic in general has thrusted us into this, meaning when Saturn moved into Aquarius, we were already dealing with a very uncertain time, right? And so what I'm trying to say is that with the pandemic, it kind of forced everybody to care about what happens to society. You could no longer just hold yourself up, or you can no longer say, well, that doesn't affect me, or I don't want to think about it. Like a lot of times with politics, people will say, well, that doesn't affect me, you know, even though it does. There's certain things you can ignore, but you can't ignore a virus. You can't ignore something that is transmittable, something that can harm you, that can kill you. You know, something that can make you sick, something, and even if, you know, some people didn't get as sick as others, like, you can't. And my channel is not to debate what you think personally about COVID, or what you think about, you know, vaccines, or if you are a person that's more into conspiracy theories. That's not what I'm getting to in my videos. But my point is, no matter what, you had to think about it, right? You had to start to make commentary about society and people's reactions to the pandemic. So that's very Saturn and Aquarius, even though the pandemic did not begin during Saturn and Aquarius, right? We're still in that Capricorn phase. Now, people are more likely to attach themselves to groups, principles, or even leaders, right, at this time. And it definitely made sense for Saturn and Aquarius to come along, because it made more sense for people to really do this at a very uncertain time, right? People are looking for answers. People are looking for people who they think have the answers, right? And so one thing that's also interesting is that, remember, Saturn is karmic. Now, what I hope comes across very clear, especially people who are into astrology, know this, is that literally there are so many different levels to planets, right? If you open up a big, ancient astrology book, or you open up a real thick textbook type astrology book, you're going to see there are so many different layers to astrology, right? And because there's so many different layers, we can talk about Saturn, like I said, as the government. We can talk about Saturn as the disciplinarian in your home when you were growing up. We can also talk about Saturn as being karmic. So what I'm saying about it being karmic in particular, all the other things we know about Saturn, we got that. Be careful who you attach yourself to at this time. If Saturn is in fact karmic for us, and if Aquarius is about the group and our ideologies and where we go to feel that something we think is accepted, or even thoughts that we attach ourselves to at this point in time, is going to be very important, especially for my Saturn return folks. We'll talk about that in a moment. For those with pure intentions, I do think that this is a great time to spread your collective messages, right? If you are a person who has an impact, you feel that you have an obligation to help people, you have an obligation to be heard, or you have an obligation in some way, I do think that if you're working on the behalf of others, if you're a person who says, like, wait, you know, I really want to make an impact, I want people to see what I've been working on, or I want people to understand this, this is a good time to do that, especially with Jupiter going back into Aquarius on the 28th for a little bit. Okay, because we know Saturn's going to stay in Aquarius for a little bit longer. We know that Jupiter is eventually going to move out of Aquarius by this time, you know, next year, or before that, actually, I believe. Yeah, it'll be before that next year. And we know that Jupiter does a dance, right? Jupiter will move in one sign, go back in, go back out, you know, does all those things. So Saturn and Aquarius, we have to understand that if Aquarius is that kind of inspirational energy when it comes to seeking freedom, right? It's a little bit different than seeking truth, which is Sag, right? Or seeking purpose or seeking insight. We're dealing with Aquarius energy, which is fixed. So here in general, Saturn being this disciplinarian, or Saturn being representing the government, or Saturn representing those who make the laws, those who make the rules, companies, organizations, those in power, basically. It's not surprising to me to see that we're having a lot of labor news, especially in the US. Now, I do pay attention if I hear something down the pipeline about other countries. However, you know, I'm not sure if this is happening in other countries, but let's just talk about what I know, okay? So it was the Burger King staff in Nebraska, they all quit. This little picture here, they all quit. At first I thought it was a joke. I'm like, this is somebody playing. No, they quit. They quit because of the conditions. You also have a lot of news of people being unhappy in corporations and companies. A lot of companies are coming under fire if they are mistreating their employees. Frito-Lay is striking, okay? I heard something about some people on DoorDash trying to get a strike going for some reason. I didn't know the reason for it, but obviously most strikes are because the workers want certain conditions and they're not receiving them, right? Another thing, there's a lot of news and concerns with unemployment benefits, okay? Different states are having different issues across the board when it comes to these claims, or to, you know, continue to be able to issue these benefits to people. Like, there's a lot of things going on. One state, I believe they said the system got hacked. Another state, I think it's Michigan, is claiming that people may have to pay back some of it. It's a lot of things going on, because remember, Saturn can also represent collecting, getting things back, right? Or this kind of limiting things. Workers are also told across the board at different companies, different organizations, different places of work, that you need to get vaccinated. Or if you're not vaccinated, we're going to have you get tested. That's happening many places. And again, my channel is I'm not here to do any of the conversation or debates about what you think about the vaccine, or what you think about the virus, or what you think about COVID, or what you think. I don't want to get into all of that. Also, like, we know YouTube will strike certain videos if that's the purpose of the video. And again, I'm not well-versed. I know what's going on, but I'm not someone that's in charge of talking about this. So, and again, it's not the point with my video with this, right? But the point is, that is a Saturn thing. You're telling the group, you're telling the collective to do something, but you're telling them to do it in their best interest, or what you say is their best interest. That's very Saturnian, parental. You need to do this because it's what's best for you. And they're not just going to say it's what's best for you. There's Saturn Aquarius energy is going to tell you it's what's best for the group. Get what I'm saying? It's what's best for everybody at work if you do this. Now, for those also who are well-versed in astrology and understand what's happening lately, Saturn squares. So squares Saturn has had lately with Mars and Uranus. Power struggles have existed. Now Mars is about to move out of Leo into Virgo, and as we know that the degrees were lessening anyway, but this square, power struggles for those who have been in control. And for some people, it's been more internal. Maybe in their personal lives, they've been noticing this energy play out. Remember, Saturn represents the authority, the establishment, and those who make the rules, okay? Aquarius is the energy of the people. Now, people who have shared ideas and interests are bonding together. We're going to be talking about labor and work and people's opinions and people making videos about their jobs. You know, a lot of people I've seen, especially like, I would say millennial and Gen Z, the older Gen Z, and millennials talking about they're quitting their jobs, or I'm quitting my job to do what I want. I might do a video about that in the astrology of that in general. But remember, Aquarius rules rebellion, and every rebellion does not look the same. Every rebellion does not look like a bunch of people, you know, back in other times with torches, you know, walking down the street screaming. You know, it doesn't always look like that. Rebellion can sometimes be people collectively coming together and saying, no, I resist this rule. I resist this. Now, Uranus is the ruler of Aquarius, is the modern ruler. Remember, that's also in Taurus. That plays a role as well in terms of people worrying more about what they value, what they have, being willing to shake the table if they need to, okay? If people are not comfortable, right? Taurus energy is about being comfortable. They will have no problem doing something unpredictable. So we have to understand that at any given time, all these specific transits are interacting with one another, right? So Saturn return people, if you are going through your Saturn return right now, Saturn is in Aquarius, and you know that you're going through it or it's on the horizon for you, please remember, it starts around 27, you get another one around 59 and 89. For those people who make it to older age, you would go through another one, third one. So the biggest thing, I bring this up because, yeah, I mean, I know the demographics of most of the people that watch my videos, but sometimes I do have people who are of a different generation. I have done reports for people who are 59 plus before. So we never stop, right? We always go through a point, especially if we're spiritual people, where we understand the need for guidance. But again, homework, you got to get your homework done. You can't just sit on the chart and say, oh, this is what's going to happen, I'm just a sitting duck. It's important with Saturn return to keep in mind a sign in the house. And I wanted to give some guidance. Again, I already did a video about Saturn in Aquarius, but I wanted to do a video for especially people going through their Saturn return. And that's not the purpose of this whole video, but it is important to understand that people going through a Saturn in Aquarius return, it's going to be different than people who went through a Saturn Capricorn return or Saturn Scorpio return, etc. Whatever it is that you went through, Saturn Sag, whatever. It requires you to learn who you are and where you identify. We have to understand that Aquarius energy, at the end of the day, is trying to find where it can feel that its ideas and what it thinks and what it knows in its heart to be true finds a place, finding a home. Think about Aquarius energy, right? It's fixed, but it still needs in some way to feel as though there is some kind of attention given to their thoughts. We have to remember that Aquarius and Leo are the opposite sign energies, and they share a core need to be heard, but for different reasons, of course. A person going through their Saturn Aquarius return right now might be feeling questions of belonging or feeling alien. You don't quite feel that you fit into something, or something all of a sudden that you have known to be a mainstay, something that has a structure to it. Saturn now doesn't feel like it has a structure anymore. You're being tested. Now, sometimes when we're dealing with Saturn Aquarius energy, you need to stand alone until you find your tribe, you find your purpose, you find what you're supposed to be doing. Because Aquarius does represent this kind of individualistic mindset. But we have to remember at the end of the day, no matter how individualistic you feel, Aquarius is linked to a bigger ideology. Aquarius is linked to either influencing the group or being a part of the goals of a group, of a collective. Now, your ideologies may be tested. You have to revamp some of the things that you thought. You might notice some contradictions even in your own thinking. You are all of a sudden sitting with yourself and saying, wait, I thought this for 27, 28 years, but I don't know if this is really what I think. And that doesn't mean that all of you are having this kind of meltdown of your mindset. That does not mean that, but it does mean you have to open yourself up because you are being taught something. And the thing with a Saturn return is you're supposed to come out at the end wiser, more mature, ready to take on the next part of your life. Now, also when we think of Aquarius is about association, loyalty to whom and what you associate with may also be tested at this time, okay? Now, the importance of passing the test is crucial, okay? Think about it like this. You know, think about when you went to school, and again, you know, whether we're talking about elementary school or high school, middle school, or whether we're talking about college or whatever you did. Think about the time you had a test and you didn't feel prepared for the test, right? You walk in, you see the test, you melt down, it's like 3 pages, you gotta do an essay, whatever, right? And you say to yourself, oh, I'm not ready for this test. You just walk out of the classroom. Now, you probably didn't just walk out of the classroom, right? But we have to understand that that is what it looks like when a person backs down from their Saturn return. Now, some people, Saturn returns are way more devastating than others, and some people's it's just more of a hiccup in the scheme of your life. So that's why I said you have to understand, or you need to go to somebody to further analyze what's happening during your Saturn return. If you do notice it's bringing more you know, dramatic or tragic changes to your life, that's a different situation. But sometimes people just don't learn from it. If you walk out of that test, your teacher is going to say, well, you failed. And now you have to deal with the aftermath of that. And now your average goes down. And now, you know what I mean? Now your reputation is ruined. You see what I'm saying? So like, you sometimes have to face things and then you start to work with the aftermath of it as opposed to completely leaving it, as opposed to ignoring it. So that's an example there. You can't just walk out of the test, okay? Right? Now, I'm not saying to overburden yourself at all, but we have to understand that Saturn can't reward you if you become self-destructive. If during your Saturn return you decide to blow off your responsibilities, Saturn's waiting there. Like, oh, really? That's what you think you're going to do? Or if you ignore making mature decisions. It might require you to sometimes make decisions that's like, I don't feel like doing this, but I know that if I do this now, it's setting me up in the future. is setting me up. So that's how you gotta look at your Saturn return, especially the people that's in the 20s. 59, 89, you know who you are more. You've been through enough to kind of know sometimes how to navigate certain things. But when you're coming at that crucial point in your life where you want to evaluate things and you're now about to step into another phase of your adulthood, it is important sometimes to really work through that, right? So I wanted to talk about Sha'Carri Richardson. I've been thinking a lot about her, just her energy, you know, especially with a lot of the news surrounding her right now. So, one, she's very young and she is very, very athletic, and she has a lot of great abilities when it comes to her ability to really show her athleticism. So Sha'Carri, what I liked before I knew anything about her chart or anything like that, I don't know if it was the moon and Sag, I don't know if I picked up on it, I don't know. I don't want to say that's what it is, but I liked just her energy. Like, she's very confident, but it doesn't come across as a cocky confidence. And I do think that's because of her Aries sun being at the 5th degree, which gives a little bit more of that pull in instead of it doesn't come off in a way that shows she's trying to brag or anything like that, but she is very confident. Also, she has, like, you know, a lot of times you'll see her with the more orangey or, you know, reddish hair that's very fiery, of course. A lot of, you know, even like she wears the long nails. She's just very unapologetically herself. She wears the lashes. She is who she is. She shows up and she still dominates, right? But I wanted to talk about her, especially when it comes to the decision that she made. So she's gone through some things in her life. The reason why she said she had to, you know, so one, she got in trouble in June. She can't run in the Olympics. She dominates. She did well in the Olympic tryouts, but she can't be in the Olympics because she tested positive for marijuana in June. And as we know, with especially with the Olympics, but with any type of sports, you're not supposed to have recreational drugs in your system. You're not supposed to even have any. You can't even have any performance boosters as well. You can't just have anything in your system, right? So, with Sha'Carri, you know, she's so young, she's so vibrant. It was like, yeah, it's a letdown because people were really rooting for her, but people are still rooting for her. And so one thing I think is I wanted to understand more about why she, you know, she felt the impulse to do that. Well, she also said that she was, you know, I knew that she was trying to cope with the grief of her birth mother. I think she was raised by her grandmother, but her birth mother recently passed away. And regardless of the situation of her upbringing, you know, that's a devastating loss for anybody, especially someone who's at the public eye is now looking at you. You have a lot of pressure on you that probably causes a lot of emotional responses. And I think, remember, the moon in Sagittarius energy can be quite, it's not emotionally obvious how they're feeling, but there can be an internal thing going on, right? Remember, the moon in Sag is internally doing all the things that you sometimes see the sun in Sag doing. So the moon in Sagittarius person is going through a lot of questioning, a lot of trying to understand life, right? But at the same time, it's hard for her to express that because she's expected to be tough and stronger. She's expected to be in this public light. She said, you know, that she was really dealing with a lot of grief, and that's why she needed to she needed to basically smoke marijuana to kind of get her mind off of it. And what I also saw here was the Pluto in Sagittarius, the moon in Sagittarius. I don't know the degree of her moon. We do know the degree of her sun because, remember, the sun is not going to travel too many degrees when it's going through the sun, right, in a day. The moon in Sag did not change the day she was born, didn't change the day after. So we know that her moon is in Sag. I believe we don't know the exact degree because it depends on what time she's born. You know what I mean? The moon moves really fast. And I didn't really want to get into the degrees and do all that work with this because this is just a general energy download, right? So with the moon being in Sagittarius, especially her having the sun in Aries, it's like this need to kind of release and do something with the energy that she was feeling, right? I do think that it was an impulsive move on her part. She knew the rules. She took responsibility as well. And I thought that was very mature. She didn't try to make excuses. She explained why she did it. And it was very much like, yeah, I know, I made this decision and I'm going to do that. She's also at Mercury in Pisces. And I think the Mercury in Pisces in her is why she wasn't going to be confrontational about it. You don't see her in the media, in the news, saying this is unfair. They're being unfair to me. The moon and Sag person typically internally knows what's right and wrong. Now, do we sometimes have people who are moon and Sag who are immoral or their morals are jacked up? For sure. But what you have to understand here is at the root of it, she kind of knew this could be a consequence. But in that moment in time, remember, moon and Sag energy can sometimes be quite impulsive. Also, her sun trining her moon, right? So that creates already this kind of energy of between the fire signs. And of the fire signs, Aries and Sag are the most impulsive, especially compared to Leo. We definitely could say there's more impulsivity there. But the Mercury in Pisces really shows this kind of gentle approach to her. Even when she talks, when you hear her in interviews, you see that she is very careful in what she says. Her wording, I know she's young, and I think her media training, everything like that, she'll get better with time. But I do see, like, when I saw her reaction to being suspended, it was very much like she's not coming from a confrontational place. She gets it. Venus in Pisces can also mean, like, this is not a person who wants to damage relationships. She's also kind of understanding and aware of, like, wow, people support me. I really don't want to damage any of these relationships. I really don't want to damage any of the connections I've built. So I should just accept what happened, right? And that's a very humble thing that she did. This is why we have to not judge certain signs, because you will definitely have a person saying, oh, all Aries suns are like this. But look at this Aries sun here. She was able to take responsibility. She was able to be humble. She wasn't confrontational about it. You do have people that I think would have reacted very differently. Oh, well, I'm going through a tough time. I don't know why y'all so hard on me. Give me a second chance. She understood her consequences. She took it. Now, we do not have her birth time. I don't have her birth time. Nobody has her birth time in terms of the astrology world. There's one astrologer that I was looking at his site, and he has a breakdown of what he thinks about. He did like something about the timing of her being caught, with marijuana in her system. But he said he reached out to her on Twitter, and he doesn't have her birth time. But anyway, let's get into this. Another thing that I think of why she accepted responsibility is this Taurus stellium that she has. Ironically, when I was doing some research on Sha'Carri, what I saw, she wrote a tweet in like March, and she basically said something about there was like a list of like the most caring zodiac signs. That silly zodiac stuff that doesn't make any sense, because you can't tell how caring someone's going to be based off one sun sign. And those of us who know astrology know that. But she said, Taurus, she said, no, that's like the least sign of love. Like, I guess she's had bad experience with Taurus. That's her opinion. That's her experience, not mine. But what I'm saying is, and somebody wrote, yeah, but you have Saturn in Taurus. So that's probably why you've had a hard time with them. Either way, her Mars in Taurus. So Sha'Carri really does have to start to channel Taurus energy. This is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the importance of astrology. That sign you don't like might be super important to you. Mars is a personal planet. It is her approach. And what she has to understand is that she's going to have internally this moon and Sag need to explore, to really dive into the things that give her a sense of intrigue, being intrigued by something. She's going to feel compelled to explore it inside, right? That internal need to, be engaged in the first thing that comes to your mind, the things that you feel, the things that you want, the moon, right? We want something that makes us feel safe if we indulge in certain things, right? That can really affect our emotions as well. But the sun being in Aries is this kind of need to take on the world, to do what you want, to be like, I'm me. Even though I said that fifth degree helps her a little bit more with that kind of star power. Remember that Leo energy with the fifth degree. But at the same time, you have to be careful, because that moon and that sun energy can sometimes be a little too much like, I'm going to do me. I'm going to do what I want to do. And that Mars and Taurus energy requires her to stop, pause, and think long term. So that's what I really think happened here with, her marijuana usage. Of course, she was probably, because the thing with it is, like, it's not an issue that you want to smoke marijuana. We already know that it's legalized in many states in America, and it's legalized in other countries, right? America, we got a whole different thing going on, right? But we know that in America, there's been this legalization process, steadily going along. You still have things here and there that are not fully transparent with that. But the point is, as a society, there's a different take on it. But at the same time, when you're an athlete, you're not supposed to have anything in you. Okay? So the point is, she has to understand her stellium, how to utilize that Taurus energy. How to utilize it, especially Jupiter being in Taurus. She's going to benefit and shine more when she thinks long term. When she thinks long term, she's going to be able to influence other people who are able to see that she understands the process of building herself up. And that Mars and Taurus energy, if she knows to utilize it, she can still be expressive, right? This expressive Aries sun person. She can still be expressive. She can still be fun. She can still be lively, because that sun and that moon trine is going to create that. Whatever she feels inside is going to also come out as someone who seems independent, who seems fun, who seems adventurous. But she also has to learn to utilize this Taurus energy in her chart, right? Which she, at this point in time, she's 21. She has not yet mastered that. And you know, again, I don't think everybody has to be into astrology. I don't think it's a problem if Sha'Carri is or isn't as much, but the thing is that because she said in that tweet that she didn't like Taurus energy, or she didn't say she didn't like them. Let me not put words in her mouth. She basically said that she didn't believe that that was the sign that showed the most love, Taurus, right? But she has a Taurus stellium, so it is going to be helpful for her on her journey to understand what Taurus energy, the benefit of Taurus energy, of how to sometimes move in silence, move slower in order to really accumulate and build the things up. Think before acting, right? Think before acting and understand that there's a process to all these different things, and she has the potential to really shine and be seen for somebody who has longevity, but she can't be too impulsive, right? And we already know the Uranus and Aquarius generation already. Uranus ruling Aquarius is the rebellious type. This is a rebellious energy. Now, her Uranus and Neptune are far apart in degrees when I looked at the just the breakdown of her placements. So they're not really close, but Uranus and Aquarius generation is that rebellious one. You have to understand the Uranus and Aquarius generation, that those people, you have to understand, yes, it can bring you forth. You are different. You are unique. You are yourself. But you also want to be careful to know, I tell people all the time with Uranus and Aquarius generation, when and where do you do that? You can rebel. It's cool to rebel if it's not going to cost you the Olympics, if it's not going to cost you something. And this is not me judging her decision. You know, it is what it is. She accepted her consequence. You know, we wish it would have gone differently because she does seem to have like such star quality. I don't think this will keep her down. I do think that I hope she learns from this. And I think she's a moon in Sagittarius. Moon and Sag people do tend to learn their lesson when something makes them feel a certain way. If Moon and Sag doesn't like how something made them feel, I'm you know, one too, we're willing to kind of adapt to different ways because we don't want to feel that way again, right? And remember, Sag wants to experience something in a whole worldly way. And if she's lost that opportunity, I do think she probably, if she has the ability to self-reflect and be like, dang, I missed out on something I really wanted to experience. That's that Sag energy. Now, I'm not going to get into Neptune and Aquarius too much, you know, for this, because it's not a chart reading per se, but I did want to show that she has Uranus and Neptune both in Aquarius, right? So now what we're going to do here is Pluto and Sagittarius. I do think that she has to kind of maybe separate herself a little bit more from what other people around her do. And that's just a message I'm getting, not even me interpreting this. I do think like if there's people around her, having a really good group of people around her is going to be super important in order for her to really make the best decisions. I think her environment is going to be really key, right? Whether it's who she's dating, who she's friends with, who is leading her, who is guiding her in her goal, her career. I would definitely say, like, if she wants to really tap into her dreams and allow herself to envision the life that she wants, who she's around is going to be super important. Now, what I thought was interesting is the moon and Pluto. Now, again, I know her Pluto degree, but I don't know her moon degree because, again, the moon changes several degrees throughout the day, okay? So I don't know that, but I do know that she was, you know, she was not raised by her birth mother, and sometimes you can see, you know, if the moon is conjunct Pluto, I don't know the exact degrees, maybe it's not conjunct by degree, but anyway, moon Pluto can mean that she probably always harbored, again, I don't want to speak on her behalf, but this placement would mean always felt a certain, even when her mom was not near her, always felt some sort of connection to her. So that's why this really hit her. Some people are like, well, if she wasn't raised by her, first of all, we don't have a monopoly on someone's grief. We don't get to tell someone how to feel just because someone didn't raise them. If someone passes away, we don't have the right to do that. But the moon having an aspect or any connection to Pluto can definitely mean very strong, intense feelings. And if Sha'Carri felt like there wasn't closure before her mom passed away, she might have really felt like, I need to just relieve myself. I don't know. Remember, moon and Sag energy, it's difficult sometimes to truly go inside deep to those feelings, especially if you're used to always showing this Aries energy. Now, again, I don't know her ascendant, so we don't really know how she interacts with the world. We don't really see her instinctual approach, but that is just something to keep in mind. One thing I also thought was interesting was her North Node in Leo at the 0 degree. She's going to have to learn how to deal with her new image. 0 degree is very raw, it's new, it's unsettled energy, okay? And anytime I see something 0, I'm like, ooh, that's not well developed yet. That's not well developed, right? It's like a raw egg energy, in my opinion. It's like a raw egg is 0 degrees. And North Node in Leo is, yes, you're probably meant to shine. You're meant to be seen. She has to learn, though, also that comes with a new look at having to deal with a reputation. That comes with her having to understand that people are looking at her and that people are going to be seeing the moves that she makes. And so it's going to be important for her to really make decisions that helps us be able to see the most important parts of her talent. Because North Node Leo, like she has to learn how to accept her talents, which she has, but she also has to learn how to cultivate those talents in ways that help her stay in a way that allows for longevity, allows for her to be here for the long haul. It's that Taurus energy in her chart that she needs to tap into. Now, lastly, I want to talk about Mars and Leo, and Mars going into Virgo. One thing I always say with astrology, so the reason I have this little picture here is like this. You're passing over. You're passing it over, right? The reason I say that is because sometimes with astrology, especially with zodiac signs, people, like the sun signs, people want to stop it. It's like, pause. This season is over, new season. Things bleed into each other. That is why you'll find a person that's a Leo, but has Virgo energy. Venus Virgo, Mercury in Virgo. You'll find a Virgo that has Leo energy, right? Or you'll find the neighboring sign can sometimes show up a lot in someone's chart, especially since we know the sun, the sun, Mercury, and Venus do not travel that far from each other. So it's not unlikely to have a Leo, who's a Leo sun, but everything else is Virgo. Not everything, but some things are Virgo, right? Now, my point is that we have to understand this passing off of the energy. It is not a hardcore stop. It is not a hardcore pause like people think. The things you were working on don't just stop because it's a new transit. So, but let's dial back. Mars is the planet of war. It's aggressive in nature. It can show the need for dominance or the need of getting what you want. That's not always a bad thing. Sometimes we have to show that more animalistic side of ourselves in order to really achieve things, right? If we're lacking confidence, we need to bring in Mars. So Mars doesn't always mean it's all a bloodbath or a battle, but we have to understand that Mars energy can bring about that. And that's why we've seen during this Mars and Leo transit, you have seen a lot of ego. Or if you're someone who's in different circles or online circles, or if you follow different types of people, you might have seen a lot of egotism being on display, especially even more so with social media. Now, what the Leo sun wishes to project, Mars and Leo wishes to do and exert. It's not just being, it's not just look at me for what I am. Mars is about this action process. People want respect during the Mars and Leo transit for what they want. For what they've done. Cool, great. It's not a problem if you deserve it. We all have done things before and we deserve our credit. We deserve sometimes to be noticed, appreciated for what we've done. But boasting and egotism is also a potential, right? Not seeing clearly being humble. That is why sometimes what we benefit from, y'all, is transits having layers. So Mars is going into Virgo, but we're still in Leo season. We're about to go into Leo season, right? We're in Leo season. When I publish this video, we're in Leo season, right? So because of that, we're never at a place where everything is Leo, everything is Virgo, everything is Libra, everything is Taurus. That would be a nightmare if every planet was in the sign at that same time. It would be a nightmare. So that's why we do have an equal distribution among the planets. Those who are passionate can benefit from transferring this energy to positive creative pursuit. So those of you who use Mars Leo energy to reevaluate yourself in terms of transferring this into being creative, taking that move, taking that leap of faith, having confidence in yourself, right? Now, as Mars moves into Virgo, this is what I'm talking about. As things transition in, remember, Mars in Virgo, when it first moves in, is going to be at a very raw degree, a very 0 degree, right? So it's going to be important for us to understand it's time to show and prove with your actions, right? If you, Mars and Leo, people are no longer going to care about that ego. Maybe they fell for it. And also, you will have the Sun in Leo and Mars in Virgo at the same time. That is why I think it's so important for us to understand the transit. Because what can happen here is if you are the greatest, your actions and work ethic must produce results. This is the best time to really help and humble people. If you feel like there are people who are in that Mars and Leo zone, people who can't let go of their ego, people who can't understand how to look at things thoroughly and fully, you can help them. Or if that's you, if you spent all Mars and Leo being egotism, worrying about yourself, thinking about yourself first and foremost, right? And maybe there's a reason for that. That's not a judgment, but it's time to repair and patch up. Virgo energy is about growth. Virgo energy, before Virgo can grow, it has to analyze and see what's all in front of it, right? It's now important for people who said they were going to do something to back it up with the work ethic that we now have done. Don't be surprised if those who have flexed their egos wind down. If you notice anybody in your life that's been too egotistical, they might wind down. or they're going to go into repair mode. Because remember, different transits start to hit different parts of our charts. It starts to hit different people's charts, and it does produce a different energetic difference. Does not mean the person changes, doesn't mean they do a whole 360, but it does mean there can be some changes there. So lastly, what we want to talk about is we're about to head into Leo season, okay? We're about to be out. We're out. By the time I do this video, or by the time this video is seen, we are out of Cancer season. So here's what I mean by understanding the energy. Here's some keywords. Pride. The pride is not always a bad thing. Sometimes we have to have pride. You have to have some type of confidence and belief in yourself. Ego, talent, shine, power, children. We always forget about the children. Leo is associated with children, so don't be surprised if you hear or expect a lot of news about children, school, vaccinations, those types of topics coming up during Leo season. These can be positive or negative. All energy is based on how we use it, and it is not a given that it will always be positive. I already know. I know it's going to happen. It happens all the time, especially for certain signs, especially for Leo. People are like, Leo season, royalty is here. Yes, and I like I said before, I'm Mars and Mercury in Leo. But what I want us to understand, though, is it does matter the transit. In my opinion, Mars and Leo transit has not really been that great for me. Mars is in my 12th house. It slowed me down a little bit. It's made me not as motivated to do certain things. So Mars and Leo has not really, it was good for me then to take a break from reading. So actually it worked out. It was good for me to take a break from readings for most of July. But Mercury's coming into Leo. So I think that'll be a decent time. My chart ruler is Mercury, so that kind of works in. But anyway, point is, it is important for us to understand no matter how much we want to celebrate, we always have to look at the fact that we have to utilize the energy in positive ways, okay? Also, Saturn and Jupiter and Aquarius will eventually be in opposition to Leo. What does that mean? What potential themes can emerge? Be prepared to see around you in some way a theme of groups of people against the individual with power, especially if the energy has been brewing for a while. And again, when I mean that you're going to see this, it doesn't mean it's always your life. It could be in your life. It could mean society. It could mean a news story. It could mean something shows up thematically where you see groups of people against the individual who has the power. And sometimes you can see this more on a collective level. This could be society. It could be going against what people are told they have to believe or think because this is the person or this is the institution in power. And Aquarius energy is like, no, the group, the collective, we need something different. So don't be surprised during this Leo season with the Saturn and Jupiter coming together that you see this kind of pushback and this kind of back and forth with that theme in particular. That is it for this video. If you want to get updates about transits, if you want to see for the month what to expect, please visit my please go subscribe to my newsletter. There I go through the whole major transits and I give a little bit of a preview and some predictions for what that can mean for the month. This is a bonus. I didn't intend to add this in the video, but a lot of people are still talking about Joshua Jackson, actor, talking about how his wife, Jodie Turner-Smith, an actress, how she proposed to him. And as we know in society, there are still some type of taboos in terms of like roles, gender roles in particular. And honestly, my opinion with all of this is, you know, in general, there are people who are more traditional for certain reasons, and there are people who are more modern for certain reasons. And for me to actually make certain statements of what I personally think requires me to actually look at the nature of the relationship. Of course, there's always this kind of fear of, you know, in terms of how men and women in a heterosexual union express love, right? In terms of how sometimes if the woman is pressuring the man, so to speak, then that means he's going to feel trapped. That's the whole mindset, right? Or that's the viewpoint many people have, that like, well, you know, he should know he wants to marry you because typically, quote unquote, typically, more women are invested or interested in marriage than sometimes men are. Men kind of have to really feel it and be 100% into it. Again, different strokes, different folks. Every woman, every man is not the same, which is why astrology is so beautiful, because it doesn't matter what somebody on YouTube told you or what somebody on Instagram or Snapchat or Twitter or whatever told you. You have to understand your own chart and what your needs are, and that's my goal here. I also watched the video when he talked to Jimmy Fallon. That's important because I wanted to see his demeanor when he talked about it. Was he spiteful? Was he regretful? He really just sounded kind of happy about it. I didn't pick up from Joshua Jackson that he was mad about it. He wasn't complaining about her proposing to him. He had this really organic conversation with Jimmy Fallon. And I think this comes a lot. Let's talk about this. So again, I do not have their birth times. So don't worry about the times on here. The times on here are just so I can get the charts lined up so we can see where their signs are. So don't worry about houses. I don't have that information. But, you know, we also wouldn't even know necessarily that much about the moon. Because technically, if they're saying her moon is in Libra, we actually would want to look at that, because that means that it would actually, her moon could be the next sign. Her moon could be Scorpio. So we want to be careful, because we actually don't know that, because we know the moon moves very fast. So we can operate under this pretense that we actually don't know what her moon sign is, because if the moon changed that day, a couple of hours later, she would be a moon in Scorpio, perhaps, right? So let's pause that for a second. So I lined up their chart so we can get an understanding of where the energy is. So he's a Gemini. And so when I first heard that he said this, that's why I had to go watch the video. Because I didn't want to be like some people who like, it's because he's a Gemini, it's because she's a Virgo, it's because so-and-so's a Capricorn. I wanted to actually capture the energy of this person. I wanted to watch the video and really see if I could pick up on it. And I'm like, oh, this is a very organic conversation he's having. Now, I grew up watching Dawson's Creek. I know who Joshua Jackson is. I don't know a lot about his work, but his recent work, but apparently he has a new show that is based on a true story. So I haven't really, seen him in a while, but I did hear that he was married. Point being, he naturally had that Sun conjunct Mercury energy of the person who naturally, part of their persona, part of their personality is the ability to talk to people. It's that person that you're like, wow, I could totally have a conversation with you. That is very much what the Sun conjunct Mercury can feel like, especially when we're talking about Gemini, where Gemini naturally can facilitate conversations, especially about things that are familiar to them. If a Gemini is telling a story about something that they've encountered, that they know to be true, they really tend to be really good conversationalists. So what I found interesting about him and his wife is that they both have their Sun and Mercury conjunct, right? And I think that then I went and watched an interview of her, right? So I watched an interview with her and I'm like, oh my goodness, like she's so, what's the word I want to use to, her spirit, like I would love to know what her rising sign is, because she's so spirited, she's so vibrant, she seems so, cool to talk to when she was doing the interview. Who was she interviewing with? Let me look. Because his interview I watched was with Jimmy Fallon, and the interview that I watched with her, Late Night with, who was this on? Let me see. She was on Late Night with Seth Meyers. Okay. So I watched the video and I'm like, oh, they both probably have really good conversations. Now, we know that by sign, Gemini and Virgo are both ruled by Mercury. They're both Mercurian, but we know that they square as well. However, I think that they probably both push each other to kind of think in different ways. I think that the square between the Virgo and Gemini in their relationship probably fosters a really good opportunity for them to kind of mesh and embed each other into each other's worlds. Now, what also I found interesting here is like, well, what would cause a woman to propose, right? In a society where like typically they're waiting for the man. And he said, what did he say? I wrote it down. He said she was adamant and she was right. He did not complain. He did not say, oh man, I got the old, what they used to say, some men about wives, the old ball and chains. He didn't say anything negative or disrespectful about this union. He seemed really proud of being married to her and really happy about it. And that is why in my mind, I'm like, regardless of what I personally think about who should propose or who wouldn't, whatever, I feel like it probably works for them. So let's look a little bit closer. Again, I'm not going to do this like I would a regular synastry report because I don't have the exact birth times. So I don't want to spend too much time doing something that might not even be as accurate. But we can talk about what we do see. Now, what we do see here is he's got a concentration of Leo energy. So he's a Gemini. And those Gemini men sometimes can kind of talk a lot about their relationship, okay? It doesn't surprise me that he revealed this. So even though I didn't know that she'd proposed to him, it doesn't surprise me. And that's why when I looked at the video, when I looked at his chart, I'm like, I don't think he was doing this to slight her. Because some people are like, why would he say that? He should have kept it to himself. That's embarrassing her. It's like, but she did it. Right? She can't be mad if she proposed to him. Now, what I saw here was like, well, Venus in Cancer, this is probably, when you see Venus in Cancer, it's the person does tend to take to relationships, and especially relationships with women, in a way in which they really truly want to find someone that feels like home. Now, I know he had relationships before her and not gotten married, but the Venus in Cancer to me was like, okay, well, I can see why he might have accepted this, because it made him feel, one, from the Venus in Cancer, like, oh wow, she cares about me, but also from the Leo. The Leo moon in him, he does like and need a certain level of attention and affection probably within a relationship. Not just from the Gemini need, the Mercury and Gemini need to be very, have a really good line of communication. But when I saw that moon in Leo, and then the Saturn in Leo, and then the Mars in Leo, I'm like, oh wow, this is a stellium, 1, 2, they're all close conjunct to each other. So the stellium helps us also see him being a child star. Right? Him working hard at a young age, being a child star, having to use his talents, utilize his talents in that way. And so he's used to being seen. He's used to being doted on probably. So in a relationship, there is a certain level of attention that he may need. Now, what I also was like, well, let's look here and see what's going on with her. Her moon being in Libra, or we don't know. So here's what I mean. Let me do this real quick. So all right, I had to pull this up somewhere else. So if she had been born at, let's say, 11 p.m. that same day, she would be a Scorpio moon. So we actually don't know her moon sign unless we know her birth time. That is why degrees are important. So when you pull up someone's chart and you don't have their birth time, you want to look at planets, especially the moon. The moon changes so quickly that the degrees will change easily, whereas Pluto is not going to move very fast at all. Like, it's going to be stuck at that 5th degree. When she was born, it was stuck at that 5th degree for a very long time, right? So the point being is we actually don't know her moon sign. However, what we do know is the Venus is in Scorpio. And if her Venus is in Scorpio, that perhaps also helps us understand the fact that, she could in many ways also have a certain level of attachment, a certain level of wanting to feel in a way that I think also with Pluto being there, I think she knew what she wanted. I think she knew what she wanted right off the bat. And I don't think there was any question when it came to that. I think she knew that she wanted this relationship to be serious, okay? And if you have Venus conjunct Pluto, you tend to know what you value, know what you want, you tend to go for it. When a person is truly aligned with their Pluto and Scorpio energy, they can really, in a way, embed themselves in whatever it is that they feel is needed to them, especially emotionally. Now, him having Uranus in Scorpio, interestingly enough, would be, in direct, line with Pluto and her Venus. Now, obviously not the Venus is 0 degree, but also linked to being in a marriage with somebody of a different race, someone of a different background, which they clearly are an interracial couple. I also think what also points to the interracial coupling is not just Uranus and Sag. That's why I said it would be so interesting to know what their rising sign is, because we would know the rest of the chart and be able to see. But also Neptune being in Sag. So Uranus is conjunct Neptune. Being able to see beyond differences. That's a key component of Uranus and Neptune conjuncts. Being able to see beyond differences in order to really get something that is uplifting and spiritual. And their union has a spirit, it has a special, seeing this couple, again, I don't know a lot about them, so I'm just going off the energy. I'm not even a fan, right? I was really impressed by her interview because she just seems so lovely. Just the way how she comes across. And he seemed very, in his interview, his Mercury and Gemini energy, like the way in which the conversation flowed, was interesting. So, again, this is me not really knowing much about them. I'm not fans per se, but I do think that there is something to this relationship that does feel really special to the both of them. Now, again, I'm not here to say whether they're going to last, not last, whatever. That's not my place. If people are happy, hopefully they stay together. My point here is that I see this energy throughout here. What also stands out to me is the fact that when we're thinking about a woman, and when she kind of shows more of that, and I want what I want, I'm going for it, we're always going to look also at what other energy do we see. We don't see Leo in the chart. We don't see a lot of fire in the chart. We do see that for her, she has Saturn, Sagittarius as well. But at the same time, we also can see the fact that she has Mars in Capricorn. Mars in Capricorn, since that's exalted, that also helps foster the Scorpio energy in her chart of going for what she wants, going for what she needs. So when you look at her chart, I think we have to go beyond just something very simplistic like, oh, that's a Virgo thing. Because proposing to a man is not really that common for most women anyway. And again, this is not me saying what you should do, what you shouldn't do. That's up to you. It's not really common anyway. But then you can't say, oh, she did that because she's a Virgo. Oh, he accepted because he's a Gemini. Like, you can't. That actually, you have to look at this whole chart, because that's not typically a trait, you know, associated with that. If he revealed something like, oh yeah, in the household we have specific rules, there's certain specific things, she has specific quirks and ways she likes things done, that to me would be like, okay, that might be a Virgo thing, right? But that's not what we're talking about here. I would be interested to know if she has that moon in Scorpio, because what would be interesting is it's gonna show a difference. Because now again, I'm only going by signs. I don't have the houses. When you have houses and you have degrees, you do know that things get a little bit fuzzy with trine, sextile, what are we talking about? A sextile, not septile, that's a minor aspect. You know, squares and all those things, because sometimes placements can trine by degree, but they don't trine by sign. I don't really like doing that, but that's a whole different conversation. Like, I like trines to be very neat. I like trines to be Cancer, Scorpio, Virgo, Taurus, right? I don't like the whole, oh, well, technically this sign's about to change, so that's a trine. I don't really like doing that. But what I'm saying with astrology is sometimes you will see that. You will see something trined by house, square by house, but not necessarily by sign. Point that I'm trying to make here is that, well, if we loosely look at this, that means that this is a good pairing, right? The moon. Because Leo and Libra are sextile signs. And if this was her chart, we don't know, a 20-ish degree moon and a 21st degree moon, anything around there together would mean that there is a sextile perhaps forming. By perhaps, I mean, again, we have to know what house it's in too to see how this is going to play out. But that could be good for them, because these are both signs that are pretty expressive. These are both signs that kind of like the more carefree part of a relationship and of their emotion, you know, their emotions, right? The moon in Libra is willing to compromise. Let's come down to the same level. The moon in Leo was like, you know what? We're going to look at the bright side. Yeah, we had an argument yesterday, but let's talk about, you know, what we're doing today, right? So I think Libra and Leo energy together can be good. But again, if she's at moon in Scorpio, remember Scorpio, well, if she is a moon in Scorpio, it would be a lower degree Scorpio moon, and it would actually mean that it really doesn't square that Leo, because that square would have to be a closer, you know, closer degree together, a tighter orb, right? So basically, I do see that also I want to talk about their Pluto for a moment. So he has his Pluto in retrograde. He's probably been through a lot of experiences with relationships. I did not look this up. I know that he's had a couple of relationships before that, but again, I do think that there's probably even been some codependency issues if this at this 13th degree. Him learning his own independence in relationships, him learning what he actually wants has likely been a theme for him. Pluto and Libra wants to transform through their relations to other people. They're learning how to do that through time. So if this is a relationship that is really near and dear to his heart, this might be in his mind the one, right? Because he's already been through all these other experiences that did not lead to as serious of a commitment down the line. Again, I'm not negating those relationships. Pretty sure they were valuable as well, but he married her. Her having Pluto in Scorpio, we already know that that's a different energy. Pluto knows what it wants a little bit more. We're dealing with Pluto and Scorpio. So that also could be an indicator there of how this also came about. Pluto and Libra is more of a, okay, go with the flow. Maybe I'll try this. Okay. And also you have to understand here with the sun in Gemini and having Mercury in Gemini, there's more of a, okay, that sounds like a good idea type of energy. You get what I'm saying? And again, if he feels she really cares about him, she gives him the attention he needs. I'm not saying he's the only one in the marriage that gets attention. If he feels that way, then of course this is why it played out. Of course this is why he's happy about it. Of course this is why he says she proposed, this was the right decision. This was great. You know, that's basically what he said. He said she was right. He said she was adamant about it, but she was right. So again, we just can only go on by what they say, but that is something also to take into consideration. You also would see that their Saturns, you know, are both in fire signs. You know, there is no close, you know, the degrees are not really close together to make that big of a splash, but we do see that both of their Saturns are in fire signs, helping us also see that expression is a part of their artistry and the work that they do in terms of their career and their fields in general. Now, and so you know, also again, like I said, that Venus in Cancer, I think, was really instrumental. I don't think it was like because he's a Gemini man, he was more open to it necessarily. I don't think that's all there is to it. I think that there is this Venus in Cancer energy here is like when he feels at home, when he feels safe in a marriage or relationship, he's going to be more willing to be in it. And so also him having his North Node in Libra, he's learning, not just partnerships, probably in relationships, there's probably other things there. Now, what is interesting is they have some things to work on though. And maybe as a unit, they grow together. But the reason I say that is because his North Node is in Libra and her South Node is in Libra. That is considered, you know, to be, you know, that could be an aspect to this synastry. Now, what I would say is that these are far apart degrees, the 2 and the 21. They're both here learning slightly different things. So my only concern when there's a relationship where one person, where the people have each other's North and South nodes reversed, is understanding that your life path is not his life path and his life path is not your life path. And how do they both coexist and grow together in a relationship but still learn to work on their own accord? Because hers being in Libra, but also that Aries energy, her Aries energy, right? That is that kind of fiery energy. That is kind of like taking life by the pants and, you know, that is kind of like taking life and getting what you want. And it is being independent, but it's also about going for what you truly want. So in a way, regardless of what happens, her proposing to him is in some way creating other opportunities for her to stand on on her own and go for what she truly wants without always having to deal with another person. As long as she does not become too codependent on this relationship, it should be okay.